All right, what's up, guys? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We got a lot to talk about in this video, right? But I'm not going to be on for too long in this live. This is definitely going to be a video where I'm going to talk about this topic in upcoming videos and lives as well. I'm talking about the whole welterweight situation with Boots, Brian Norman, Teofimo Lopez, Evan Haney, all of those guys. I'll get to that shortly in the video. All right. Um, I couldn't get on this morning, man. I was tired. I went out. I watched the Knick game. We all saw how that played out. I mean, we put too much pressure on ourselves. We should have just won one of those games at home, and I think not winning a game at home really crushed us. I was cool with losing one game in New York. I was cool with losing one game in Indiana, but that game last night just wasn't it. I hated the referees in the fourth quarter. They were terrible. I really don't know what else to say about the Knicks. We down 3-1, not really looking good. Even if we're able to win the next one in New York, I don't know if we can win three in a row. So that's that. All right, but I didn't get up early enough to go live. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat. What's up, Fresh BX, Saga, AO? I'll get to you guys in a minute. I did wake up like in the second round of the Sugar Nunez fight with Rikishi. All right, I did wake up, but I did not feel like getting up. I woke up, I turned it on, I just watched it in the bed. I was like, you know what? I'll just make a recap of the fight real quick. Um, I was expecting a little bit better of a fight, and that's really from Rikishi. I knew he was going to move. I knew he was going to use the ring. I just thought that he would throw a little bit more. You know what I mean? I think the pressure from Nunez was just too much. And I thought it was a clear win. Like I think it was 7 rounds of 5, 8 rounds of 4, maybe. I think Rikishi won like the first 3 rounds. Like he was doing well, um, and just making, setting traps and making Nunez, who was just coming forward relentlessly. He landed some good shots, but after the fourth round, Nunez seemed to be the ring general. He seemed to be in control of the fight, and there was moments like Rikishi would open up, but it was just not enough. You know what I mean? He seemed to be more defensive, and I think he felt his power, and I just think that he played defense just too heavy. I mean, it probably kept him from getting knocked out, but. Congratulations to Sugar Nunez. That was for the IBF strap down at 130, the one that Kakachi used to have. Okay. I don't know what this means. Is Nunez gonna fight Kakachi now? I mean, Kakachi just beat Lee Wood, right? So is he gonna fight Kakachi? Is he gonna unify? Like, is he gonna fight Raven Ford? Like, there's a lot of options at 130. We just saw Emmanuel Navarrete have that awkward ending to his fight last week, which I brought up in my last live. Right. You still have Shocky Foster as a champion at 130, and we already know that Lamont Roach is WBA champion still. Like he's still looking to fight Tank in the rematch and all that. So I don't know what happens at 130. 130 just like 126, not a lot of unifications there. I really don't know. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for Sugar Nunez now that he won that fight out in Japan. But it was a clear win for me. Like I said, 8 rounds to 4, maybe. I think it was unanimous. I think the judges had it like 115, 113. I don't know if they had it all the way through, but I know it was unanimous, right? But yeah, I think it was a clear win for Sugar Nunez. Congratulations to him. And then for the main event, Yoshiki Takai knocked out the Thai fighter Tung D. He knocked him out in the first round. He dropped him 3 times, and then they stopped it after that. I mean, he destroyed him. It is what it is. There's really nothing else to say to that. I just want Takai to unify with Sasumi, and the other two are unifying, Nagataki and Nishida. All right, so at this point, that's all I really want when it comes to these guys down at bantamweight at 118. It's just the unifications, and whoever wins these fights, hopefully we get a undisputed by the end of the year. If not, like maybe New Year going into 2026, that'd be dope. All right, so that's how I look at it. Yeah, couldn't get on live this morning. I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, yo, I'm not doing it today. Shout out to everyone in the chat, man. What's up, Meech? Meech says Nunes dogged him, but Rikishi tough. Yeah, he's tough. He took a lot of punishment to the body. You can see like all the redness around his waist. Rocco says, we won't know if Boots ducked Tio until we find out who Boots' next opponent. If something like, see, you think like how I think, and I've been pretty consistent with that. You know what I mean? That's always been my stance. When it comes to this ducking stuff, and even further, I'm going to talk more about it in a moment, but it's like Teofimo just got to the division. He fought at a catchweight. He won his fight against another 140 guy. Boots already had his plans on what he wanted to do at 147, and that was unification. That was undisputed. I don't think you just come to the division, call someone out, and then be like, all right, well, if you don't fight me, you're ducking me, But we'll get to that. Because I do have things that I want to say, and as far as what I want as a fight fan. I actually wanted to see that fight though. But I'll get to that in a moment. I don't want to get into all my thoughts yet. But we'll get right back to that. All right. What's up, AO? What's good? Saga was good. Fresh BX says no such thing as ducking someone if you never competed in the same weight class as them at the same time. If Boots don't fight him, good for not giving Race Bader the payday he's looking for. Yeah, I'm going to talk about all of that. All right. I know talking about this topic was going to bring up a lot of different angles. And I'm not a fan of Teofimo Lopez by any means. In the ring, though, I'm a fan. I think he's a phenomenal. I would never discredit his skill set. I like him as a fighter. I always has. As a fighter, when he's in the ring, he's a good fighter. But as a person, he's probably like up there from one of my very least liked people that's out there, him and his father. All right. And I never shied away from that. But when it comes to him boxing, I always gave him his props. Always been consistent with that. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. What's up, J Bean? What's good with you? E-Man says Boots is a duck. Uncle Jack says peace in chat. What's up? Yeah, Uncle Jack, that's very true. Says fans are very selective on who they assign the label of duck to. Of course, fans are selective about everything when it comes to boxing. They're selective about their racism. They're selective about their taste on how a fight should go, how fighters should fight, how fighters should act outside of the ring. The rules change depending on who the fighter is. Everybody's going to be biased in that area. You know what I mean? Most people are just not going to be consistent. You know what I mean? I try to be as consistent as possible on the channel. Okay. But yeah, it just is what it is. When it comes to racism, people hate it, but it really comes depending on who it is, and we've seen in recent situations like Tio and Ryan Garcia, for example, they've been openly racist. And a lot of people didn't have a problem with it. I mean, a lot of people that are not Black didn't seem to have much of a problem with it and still don't. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's just the world we're living in. It's not okay. It's never going to be okay, but that's just the reality. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to talk about it in every video, but at times I will bring it up and address it, just like I addressed Ryan last year when there was a lot of people not addressing it. I think those rooms and those interviews and those, it got to be really uncomfortable to be around Ryan Garcia and listening to what he said last year. You know, that wasn't a Devin Haney moment when Devin Haney said, "Oh, I'll never lose to a white boy." I remember the reaction from that. No, what Ryan did was just over the top. I mean, that was just a racist rant about black people. It wasn't even boxing related. Had nothing to do with it. And no one seems to have a problem with it, except a few, from what I've seen, maybe a couple of black content creators. Most people really didn't care. You know what I mean? It sucks, but that's just the way shit is. And Tio's just going on he's been going months with it now at this point. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. But he's a phenomenal fighter. But let's go back to where this all started. Brian Norman Jr. It really starts with him. All right. And I'm saying that because I think when Eddie, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because I don't want to go through a whole timeline. I want to go in a recent timeline because Boots recently beat Stan Jonas, and I think Eddie sent out an offer to Top Rank to fight Quay, what's up? For Top Rank for Norman to fight Boots. Now, if you did not know, recently Boots' plan was to become undisputed at 47, right? He didn't go up to 54. Now, I know last year at some point he said he was willing to go to 54, maybe when he had that tough fight with Shukashan, the first fight. Not the first fight, the rematch. He said he was willing to go up to 54. Then he retracted that. And they turned down a fight with Virgil Ortiz. He decided to stay at 47. He wants undisputed. He's been very clear about that too. I want to stay at 47 to try to get a fight with Brian Norman Jr. and Mario Barrios and Stan Jonas at the time. Now, he beat Stan Jonas, so he's unified. He has 2 belts. I'm not sure exactly who his mandatories are or may be, but all I know is that he's currently holding 2 titles. And I know he really wants the other fights against Brian Norman and Mario Barrios. Well, Brian Norman is fighting Jin Sasaki in Japan. When is that fight? He's going to be fighting him next month, all right, June 19th. So he has a few weeks until that fight. So this is the thing. I don't know anything about Jin Sasaki. All I know is that Jin has to be, he's like the number 2 ranked in the WBO. I think he's behind Alexis Rocha. I don't know if this is sort of some sort of mandatory. I don't believe it is. I didn't see or read anything about this fight being a mandatory at all. Okay, I don't know if Eddie sent this offer to Brian Norman Jr. And again, let's not get mistaken from the offer from last year where the Norman said that Eddie lowballed them. I'm not talking about that offer. I'm talking about a new or recent offer. I don't know if this offer was prior to this Jin Sasaki fight that was signed. All right. I don't know. But I did hear a Boxing Social video interview with Brian Norman Jr. this morning. All right. It was about 12 days ago, but I listened to it this morning. And Brian Norman Jr. said, Eddie Hearn reached out. We responded with, we're not doing an offer with you until after this fight in Japan. So he said, I'll get to you after this fight in Japan. I don't even want to negotiate until after this fight. Eddie Hearn went public and said they turned down another offer for me. Okay. Now, take that as you will. Should Brian Norman, should he be negotiating with Eddie Hearn about a boots fight while he's preparing to fight Sasaki in Japan? Was this prior to that? I don't believe so. It doesn't sound like it was. I don't know who's at fault. All I know is that Brian Norman turned it down because he said he's waiting for the Sasaki fight first. All right. But listening to Brian Norman in his interview, and this is how I personally feel about it. The way Brian Norman talks about Boots Ennis, I don't get the feeling like he wants to really fight Boots. Because the way he talks about the Boots fight, it's like, I'm doing my own thing. I don't really need this fight. I'm not, I want the fight, but it seems to me like, and this is also based off last year, I'll take the fight if you pay me the right amount of money. Now, that's stating the obvious. Everybody wants to get money, right? Everyone wants to get paid. But when it comes to, and being that you already had a situation where you tried to make a fight before, and I thought it was a lot of money, for Brian Norman. I thought it was a lot. Obviously, him and his dad didn't feel that way. They felt like it should have been paid more. I think it was like around 1.5, 1.7 million, something like that. Brian Norman, not a lot of people know him. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know him. He's not selling out tickets and selling out fights. He's not a big name. He's not, and that's no disrespect to the Normans, because I do like the Normans. I like what I see from his dad. I think Brian's a good fighter. At the end of the day, I don't know how much y'all looking for to have this fight, but I understand the business of boxing, especially with fighters that want to become undisputed. It's no different from Canelo and when Caleb Plant had a title and Canelo was one belt away from being undisputed. Sometimes you have to pay for the title. So if you really, really want that fight, and I'm talking about Team Boots, Eddie Hearn and them, you're going to have to pay for that title. All right. Brian Norman understands the value of that title for Boots Ennis, and they're not going to make it easy when it comes to politics and business. They're not going to make it easy for Boots to just go over there, or have Brian go over there, whoever promotes the fight, and just take the belt. You know what I mean? Brian is saying it himself. I have other things going on. I don't need this fight. I don't need them. He doesn't sound like a guy that's looking to pick up additional straps in the division. You know what I mean? Unless it works for him. So when it comes to Boots at this point, this is what you're stuck in a place where Mario Barrios is fighting Manny Pacquiao. Brian Norman is fighting Sasaki, and he may not even fight you next. Teofimo Lopez just got there, and he's calling you out. All right. Now, Tio is mad and pissed off at a whole different situation because he wanted the Boots fight to go down. But apparently, Turki Al-Sheikh wanted Tio to fight Devin Haney. And this is why Teofimo went on this crazy rant on X, all right, used to be Twitter. He went on a rant and called Turki Al-Sheikh a dictator and deleted the tweet. But he ain't say dictator, which is already an insult. He called him a dictator, D-I-C-K. Then deleted the tweet. And he did that when he already agreed to fight Devin Haney it wasn't signed, but they were supposed to fight. And then now that fight is supposedly off based on Dan Raphael, who said that he heard from 3 sources that that fight is off because of the disrespect towards Turkey Al-Sheikh. Oh man! All right. First of all, let me just say this. I'm gonna read. I know you guys are leaving me a ton of comments. I know. First of all, the welterweight division is whack to me right now. You know, it's whack. It is what it is. This division is trash to me. A lot of talent there, obviously, but it's kind of trash because it's like a whole chess game where everybody is trying to move in ways where it's like it has to be completely lucrative for them in order to make the fight. No one's really doing anything that I really want them to do or I really desire for them to do. You know, I'm like a simple kind of guy. Like me personally, I just want the best to fight the best. I want the champions to fight the other champions, but there are times where I do want big name fighters to fight other big name fighters. And to be honest, as badly as I always wanted Teofimo and Devin Haney, and I still do, I would love to see Boots fight Teofimo right now. I would have loved to see it. I'm being completely honest. I'm being completely honest. If I know Boots want to become undisputed, and I'm cool with that. So if he had chosen to fight a Barrios or Brian Norman Jr. for the belts, that's for the belts. But if you could tell me, if you gave me the option of what fight I would want to see the most out of those 3, and I'm talking about Barrios, Norman, and Tio, I'm gonna say Tio. Because Tio, not as a welterweight, is way more proven than the other 2. And I kind of want to see Tio get stomped out. I do. I want to see Tio get stomped out. I want to see Tio get stomped out. Because I think he would get stomped out if that fight were to go down. But Boots is not fighting him. I don't know what Boots is going to do. But I wish, and this has nothing to do with facts, this is just my personal opinion. I think if Boots can stay at 47 to fight undisputed or fight for a unification, because there's history there. Listen, when we say there's history, let's make one thing clear. The belts are history, but big fights are history too. Let's make that clear. Beating guys that are champions in multiple divisions, like Teofimo Lopez, is history there too. Because even though Stan Jonas was a unification match, Teofimo Lopez is a bigger name and he's more accomplished. Not at 47, but he's still a guy that has done some work. And in order for Teofimo to get proven at 47, he would need to beat like a guy like a Boots or Norman. You know what I mean? Barrios is, to me, is a title holder. I don't think he's really proven too much. I don't think he's really proven too much. Sorry, hold on. I don't think he's proven too much at 47, but he did beat Ugas. He did beat Ugas. He bought a come Santiago. He beat a couple dudes. You know, he had a decent fight with Keith Thurman. Um, but it's like it's the same with Tio when he moved to 47. I mean, I'm sorry, when he moved to 40. He didn't have much proven at 40, but he beat Josh Taylor. So we can't just it's not like I'm sitting here trying to I don't like Tio, but I'm gonna be consistent on how I feel. When guys move up, no, they're not proven until they prove themselves. In order for them to prove themselves, they have to fight someone good, right? So Tio wasn't proven at 40 when he fought Josh Taylor, but then when he beat Josh Taylor, he was proven, right? So Tio has to beat someone that is proven at 47 to be proven at 47. And I do think that the fight with Tio would have been a better fight. I know he doesn't have a belt at 47, but what at the end of the day, let's be real. Like, what has Norman done? What has Barrios really done? Tio is way more accomplished than those two. And to me, I think he's a better talent than those two. So I would have liked Boots to fight him. Do I think it's a duck for him not fighting him? It really depends on what he goes on to do. You know, if he goes up to 54 and fight what's the guy? Virgil Ortiz, you know, or you know, who's holding the titles at 54 right now? You got Virgil Ortiz, you got the other guy, the Russian, Murtazaliev. If he goes up to fight Murtazaliev next, Virgil Ortiz, Jamel Charlo, you know what I mean? If he goes up to fight Xander Zayas next in his first fight at 54, I'm not gonna. That's not a duck. That's why I don't like using the duck thing, because the duck thing is like, okay, he didn't fight Tio, but who's he going to fight? I want to wait and see if the next opponent makes some sort of sense. You know what I mean? That's the way I'm looking at it. And that's the way I always look at it. Because I've heard fans on social media go crazy once some news comes out and they start calling people ducks and all of that. I'm like, yeah, but what's the other option? I'm waiting to see what the other option is. And going back to the Eddie Hearn and Brian Norman situation, I understand what Eddie was trying to do. Eddie was trying to secure a fight with Norman now so they could know if it's worth staying at 47. But since they weren't able to secure it and they have to sit back and wait now, it's like, all right, well, what are we going to do? I don't even know if a unification is secure for me at 47. So should we just go up to 54? Or should we fight a big name at 47? You know, I think the only risk when it comes to Boots is like, I don't know how long he can fight at 47 without feeling drained, because I know it's a fight by fight basis. I've learned that from many other fighters that I've seen where they looked good in one fight. Like he looked good in the last fight against Dan Jonas, right? He looked good. But then sometimes you can look poor in your very next fight if you stay at the division too long. I mean, look what happened to Josh Taylor. He clearly stayed at 40 for too long. So I think he should move up to 54. But if he can continue fighting at 47, and he would only know that if he can continue getting down to 47. I know he wanted the unification, but I did like the Teofimo Lopez fight. And for the reasons that I stated earlier. Rocco says, if you paid attention to the new video, Boots hitting the heavy bag, he was punching high, means he's preparing for someone 6 feet or taller. Well, then I guess he may be preparing for Fundora, I guess. You know, I didn't see the video. But I'll look for it later today, you know. AO says ducking's what Fury did for Usyk for years. Joke. Well, is it a joke or not? I think he definitely delayed the fight in order to age this guy out a little bit before they got in the ring. Um, Alan says same way Bivol isn't ducking Benavides by making a trilogy with Beterbiev. Beterbiev is just as terrified as Benavides. Yeah, I don't know that. I never was into that narrative. When I heard the news that Bivol was going to do the trilogy thing, even though most people believe he won both fights, I don't think fighting Beterbiev is a duck. You can't be ducking a fighter by choosing to fight Beterbiev. I guess, and remember, he didn't really want to take that fight. I think there was a pressure from Turkey and wanting to do the trilogy match because they forced a rematch, after the controversy in the decision the first time around. Daddy Life says, I mean, Taylor beat both Ramirez and Prograde, who at the time nobody was calling weak. Nah, you're absolutely right. Pocket says Boots should fight with the big the big boys at 154. I think he's heading up there. I think he should be, Look, Teofimo, I've been hearing, and I think I did. I don't know if it was Keyshawn. I don't know what boxer said this, but it was a black fighter. It might have been correct. Let me know in the comments. Which black fighter said, I don't think any black fighter should fight Teofimo Lopez and give him another bag. Like, why even give him a bag? Now, I understand that view of it, because if you're going to hurt a fighter, I think the best way of hurting them outside of the ring is through their pockets. And if Tio has not I don't think Tio has gotten the purses that the other guys at the division got, like Tank, Ryan, Devin. He's not. He doesn't get paid. Like, I think all of those guys has gotten north of 10 million for a fight at some point or multiple times. I don't think Tio is getting like the millions of dollars for his fights. And when I think about it now, the only fights that he can really get those kind of millions with outside of Ryan Garcia is probably with another black fighter, which would be Boots, or Devin Haney, or, some of these other guys that's around. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm a fight fan. And when people are like openly racist like that, I want to see them get stomped out. But at the same time, I understand like the idea of hurting someone through their pockets and not giving them the opportunity. You know what I mean? The thing with Teofimo is that, I know there are some black people that's in the sport that has defended him and saying that they don't believe that he's an actual racist and that he's just using this as a tool to promote himself and feed off the racial bias in the boxing community. Even if that is true, I think it's somewhat of a cowardly way to promote yourself. Not only that, but Tio has always been erratic and unpredictable. He is good at burning bridges, which is what he just did with Turkey Al-Sheikh. He has a history of just saying wild things. So is his father. His father seems to be always drunk whenever he's doing interviews. So with all that being said, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like, I don't think he is. I think he can sell fights good without having to go that route. I don't think he needs to do that. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel about that. You know, if they want to hurt him through his pockets, that's cool. I mean, they're the fighters, not me. You know, but as a boxing fan, I like when fighters take it out in the ring. You know what I mean? I like when fighters like, listen, you talking crazy. Now I want to knock you out. I mean, you're getting paid millions of dollars to knock people out, and you can like legally do it. You can legally beat someone up and not get in trouble for it. So I like when people handle it that way. But you know, Tio, you know, I don't know. It's just weird to me because you know, when he runs into these guys that press him, I just don't know why he doesn't hold his position or how he feel. You know, when Terrence Crawford, when he saw him, you know, Terrence Crawford, he didn't have that energy with Bud. Um, he didn't have that energy when he was on It Is What It Is with Cameron, when he went over to their podcast and they brought it up. So, so I really don't know what's up with Tio. You know, what I will say is though, I like watching him fight. I do. You know, I always did. You know, and I became a fan of him when he was the first guy that was really pressing Lomachenko for a fight. You know, and I said this. That's documented. Those videos are there. All right. Um. Uh. Also, when it comes to Devin Haney and Teofimo, like I said earlier, I still want to see that fight, but I've been wanting to see that fight. You know, I've been wanting to see that. Like I remember Devin Haney, you know, this is all before Lomachenko. Like this, that was one of the earliest fights I wanted to see when it came to this group. I wanted Haney to fight both Teofimo and Ryan Garcia back then. Um, I like Devin Haney. I just don't like his last performance. There's no excuses for it. He does not fight like that. I think any Devin Haney, real Devin Haney fan should just be honest about that. It wasn't a good fight, and it left me with more questions than answers. I don't know where he's at mentally. You know what I mean? I really don't know. I don't want him to go forward in his career to continue fighting like that. You know what I mean? I That's just how I feel about it. You know, I don't know what else to say. Uh, I think out of all of the fighters that night, I thought Rolly looked impressive. I think, you know, it was unexpected, but he kind of exposed Ryan, all right, and being one dimensional. I always thought Ryan was one dimensional, but for whatever reason, you know, I know there was the extra weight with Ryan. I know that Ryan was definitely juiced up for the fight, but for whatever reason, Devin Haney couldn't get it done that night, right? He couldn't get it done. Um, he couldn't get out of the way of the hook. Rolly was able to do it, you know. And even if Ryan wasn't at his well, he didn't have the enhancements he had for the Devin Haney fight. I was still shocked that Rolly was able to beat him with ease. And when I did my breakdown for that fight, I don't even think I did a breakdown, but when I gave you my opinion on the fight, I didn't give Rolly a shot at all. Like, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'll say this, Devin Haney, I don't know how to even predict that fight because if Devin Haney does end up fighting Tio and it looks like it's off for now, we'll see. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Teofimo does an open public apology to Turkey Al Sheikh and they work everything out and the fight goes on. If the fight does happen, based on Devin Haney's last performance, I expect the fight to go similar to how the Jermaine Ortiz fight went with Teofimo, which I don't want from Haney. I don't want Haney to win that way. You know, I understand. Like, I think he should fight smart. Um, but I also believe like that's not the Devin Haney that I became a fan of. I know people like to trash him because he's not a huge puncher, but Devin Haney was never a runner. And I stated this yesterday. I talked about this yesterday. He never fought like that. And I hope he doesn't go forward in his career fighting like that. You know what I mean? So moving forward, um, I do want these guys to fight at the end of the day. Um, I just don't know what to really expect from any of them. I really don't. Um, but if you ask me, and as far as where we're at today, I think Boots should let go of those dreams of becoming undisputed at 47. I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think those guys really want to fight him. Barrios fighting an old Pacquiao says a lot. It says a lot on both ends. It looks like Pacquiao wants to go to the easiest target at 47. All right. That's holding the title, which is Barrios. And I think that Barrios, is not looking to get into any. I just don't think he's looking to take any risk right now. Brian Norman, he's willing to fight Boots, but they got to throw him the bag, like a super bag, because there's a lot of risk and he wants all the rewards that's going to come with that fight, especially knowing that Boots want to be undisputed. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm not saying that Norman's afraid of Boots. I'm not saying that he's ducking him, but I'm looking at the Normans are looking at it from a business standpoint, completely business when it comes to that fight. And I can't blame them because some of these other fighters, that's how they look at it too. All right. So with that being said, move up, go up to 54. Also, being that he's being promoted by Eddie Hearn, right? There's even another bigger name out there outside of just Teofimo or Virgil Ortiz. What's up with Conor Benn? If Conor Benn is not fighting Eubank in a rematch, he should be pressing Eddie to make that fight. Just gonna put that out there. There probably is going to be a rematch just because of the hype behind that first fight. Most people are calling it fight of the year. So there's no doubt in my mind that a rematch is going to take place. But if a rematch does not take place, Boots should be pushing towards that fight. For real. And if he doesn't fight Conor Benn, he should be fighting Virgil Ortiz at 54. Now, I don't know if that fight is going to be as easy to make as it was before because Virgil, he's coming off of 2 really tough fights. I don't know how that's going to work when they try to negotiate that one. And at the end of the day, Boots did turn it down the last time. But I don't think Boots should be sticking around at 47, period, bro. It's not really much there. And there are other big names at 54. Jamel is going to be making his way back to a fight soon. Jamel, you're going to have Virgil Ortiz, you're going to have, Fundora, Like, you can get Conor Benn at 54, who has not fought at 47 in a while now. You don't need to stay. Let these dudes that's at 47, like Teofimo and Devin Haney and Ryan and Rolly and them dudes, let them fight each other. Like, let these 40-pounders fight at 47. Let them do it. You don't even need to stay there. There's other big fights that can be made where you can be stronger because you don't have to drain yourself. That's just my opinion. Now, if you were forcing yourself to stay at 47, I think the Teofimo fight would have been cool. But was it him that didn't want the fight, or was it Turkey that didn't want the fight? I'm a little confused on that too, because Teofimo said that Boots didn't want the fight and he ducked it. But he's also mad at Turkey for not making a fight. So which one is it? Who's at fault? I really don't know. That's why I said, yo, we got to stop with this ducking talk. Because do we really know what's going on? Do we really know? No, we only know what's being tweeted. We don't really know. That's why we got to chill with the duck talk. All right. Alan says Boots is currently a weight bully. He needs to move up right now in unification, if not possible. I mean, listen, I don't ride with the weight bully thing like that, because if you can make the weight, you can make the weight. You know what I mean? If you can make the weight, you make the weight. All right. People are going to use whatever advantage they have going into a fight. All right. So if you can make the weight, the moment you can't make the weight, then that's when it becomes a problem for me. All right. But you can make the weight, you can make the weight. Young One says Boots would KO Teal. He's not ducking that confirmed duck. I think he would KO Teal too. That's kind of why I don't want the fight to happen. But you know what I mean? Like, I know people would say, oh, he's a weight bully if he beats Teal. Well, I don't care about that. All I care about is Tio getting the fight that he's asking for, you know, and in my opinion, that would be an ass for Tio. Ryan, the Viral Chronicle says, am I wrong for wanting to see Pacquiao versus Tank at 47 if he beats Barrios? No, you're not wrong. You know what I mean? That's what you want. That's what you want. You know what I mean? Like, I personally don't want to see Pacquiao in any more fights unless he's doing like the whole exhibition thing. But I think it's kind of wrong, even for Manny Pacquiao and the legend that he is, to go like 4 years without fighting, right? And then come back and fight for a title in his first fight back, you know, when he lost his last fight. I just, like, what's the point of having rankings? And it's like, who's paying? Why would you even pay? This is why I don't, I know we talk about legacy, and I know I'm the first one to talk about legacy, unification, and belts and all that shit, but like the belts are trash, like, at the same time. The sanctioning bodies being, I mean, not the belts themselves, but the unification, I mean, the sanctioning bodies themselves, you know, they just break their rules all year round. Haney gets beat by Ryan Whiffle without Osterin, alcohol, cocaine, Flintstone vitamins. That style is all wrong for Devin. Devin can box Ryan. Ultimately, he doesn't have power like Rolly to make Ryan respect him. And he said that. All right. Yo, my man, I haven't thought about Flintstone vitamins in years. I wonder if my mother is watching this, because my mother made me take my Flintstone vitamins every single day when I was really, really young and still living in the Bronx. Yo, my mother made me, she made me take them vitamins every day before I went to school or after breakfast or whatever, every single day. So that's very funny for you to even bring them up, because I have not thought about, I don't even know if people still take those. I don't even know if they're so popular, but that's pretty funny. That was a pretty funny comment. That's crazy. Oh, you say you in the Bronx too. Yeah, that was crazy. That's crazy. All right, guys, listen, I got to get up out of here, man. I told you guys this is going to be a short live. I'm going to try to get back on here tomorrow again. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about this maybe tomorrow, but I know there's definitely some other topics I want to discuss too. Definitely some heavyweight stuffs. And then I want to talk a little bit about the fights this weekend. I haven't had time yet to look at the opponents of Jamal Charlo and Caleb Plant. I think I'm familiar with one of them. One of the other ones I'm not too much familiar with, but yeah, please, everybody on the way up, please, can everybody just give me a quick thumbs up, man? I have not asked y'all all video. Please smash the like button. Shout out to everyone that's donated to Cashapp. Please, you know, if you want to support the channel, send me a quick Cashapp. You know, I don't care if it's $1, whatever it is. I'm cool, and I appreciate you guys supporting. And I'm going to be back tomorrow on the live as well. And we'll talk some more about this weekend's fight, maybe a little bit more about this topic. I'm going to read the comments. If you guys leave me more comments in the comment section, maybe I'll respond to some of the comments from there. But I know I was all over it, all over the place with this live, but it's just a mess at 47 with Tio, Norman, and all these dudes. But anyway, I'm out of here. Please hit the thumbs up. I'll see you. You guys have a good day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.